So apparently the new Oblivion got censored. I didn't know this, I didn't even hear about this, but they actually have been censoring the new Oblivion.
The Oblivion remaster has been the talk of the town, and it's no wonder. Its sudden announcement and subsequent release is an event that breathed new life into the existing fanbase, and it also opened the door, or an Oblivion gate, for a lot of new players that haven't experienced the game before. Though most of the responses and discourse around the game has been overwhelmingly positive, and I think deservedly so, there have been a few things that have sparked controversy right off the bat and resulted in some heated debates around the internet. But even with all of that, it hasn't actually hurt the game in any way. People that had some issues just modded them out and moved on. Though I myself am very positive about this release, and I've really been enjoying playing the game.
I've enjoyed it too.
There are a few things that I've noticed that don't really make sense to me, or I guess I just don't really understand why they would go out of their way to change them. It seems that in the remaster, female characters and depictions of women in general have been noticeably toned down or even censored. While they may seem like small things if you come across them, and I don't actually think they ruined the game, if you look at the bigger picture and how many things were affected by these particular changes, you'll start to notice a bit of a pattern that is perhaps setting a precedent and a new standard for future Elder Scrolls games and really games in general. Unfortunately, I think that a lot of these changes were made while ignoring the deeper context of the world, and it's not entirely clear
let's see an example
of the purpose of making these changes was.
What was the change here? Like, what was the change? Did they make that? Is it a boob reduction? Let me see if I can look this up and find it myself. Oblivion remaster statue difference. Okay. Yeah, I could expect that. Watch the video. Okay, she wasn't explaining it at the beginning, so I assumed, I wasn't sure if she just assumed that the audience knew what the difference was.
A coincidence that all of these things were changed, but again, it's just not clear because there is a bit of inconsistency there as well. Today we're going to talk about the changes and some of the censorship affecting female characters in the game, and the kind of message that perhaps unintentionally or maybe intentionally it sends. Now in my last video, I noticed maybe one or two subtle things when analyzing the clothing in the game that kind of surprised me in terms of the changes that were made and why would they have changed that. Some pieces used to be a bit more off-shoulder, for example. Others accentuated the curves and the figure of your character a lot more.
What a surprise. Toning down the sexuality of the game in order to make mentally ill, probably fat women happy. Great, that's just what we need.
They weren't afraid to show a little bit more skin in something low-cut. That said, I don't think that the original version of Oblivion was ever particularly out there or sexy. Sure, their clothes may have appeared more flattering, but I thought that it was all very reasonable and it didn't ever raise any eyebrows. Other than that, everybody was equally a potato. Some potatoes were just very feminine. It fit the world perfectly. The remastered version has hidden much of what I said in the previous video, gave flair and an attitude to certain things. Others have been just straight up changed in what kind of feels like an attempt at censorship.
It's absolutely censorship. It's not even a question. This is what's happened with like 10 or 20 different video games. Like, I mean, how many times does it have to happen before people think that it's happening? It's obviously happening. I couldn't really care less, though. I think that you should care. Because the reason why you should care is because it indicates that people care more about making sure that this video game is congruent with their current world values than making an experience that the audience wants. And you should ask yourself this question: is this what the audience wants to see? And the answer to that is probably no, right? Like, I think that we would all come to the conclusion that the answer to that is no. And so when the answer to the question, does the audience want to see this, yes or no, is no, then why does it exist? Why are they putting something in the game that players don't want? And also keep in mind that a person who will do that doesn't respect you. They don't respect what you want. They don't respect the type of game that you might want to play. They only want to push their idea onto you. And that's it. And that will not stop at, you know, like cleavage or whatever. This will happen to everything. Because this is why all of these woke games are garbage. The reason why all of these woke games are garbage is because the people making them don't care about the audience. And so you should care for that reason.
Really missed the huntsman's vest and pants in the clothing video because, to be honest, I actually didn't recognize them at all when I came across them. I guess I didn't think twice about it at the time because this is the version that the male characters wear, and I recognized it from that, so it just slipped past me. Like some sort of a Mandela effect, I guess. Now here's the thing, this is what they changed it to, and it was always called a vest, so I guess this makes it closer to its name. But I don't think that that's why they changed it. If they were really worried about sticking true to the name of items, then perhaps the black finery would be black and not brown, right?
Yeah.
This is something else. And it's something that I will explore in this video and show you more examples of. But specifically looking at the huntsman's vest, to me, this was a totally unnecessary change that I think nobody would ever complain about if they left it like before.
I mean, like, here's the truth, right? What do you think the odds are that this was done in order to promote some form of lower amount of female sexualization in the game? What do you think the odds are that this is the case? 100%, right? It's 100%. And fundamentally, I don't want people going into my video games and changing them because of their worldview. I don't like their worldview. I disagree with it. And I think that more people need to speak out and say, stop changing things. We don't want this. Don't do it. That's it.
But I feel like that all goes out the window when you think of an NPC that wears this clothing. So Branwen came to mind, and this particular change has made her and her situation look really silly and out of place.
Does every fucking game, even a remaster game that had a complete graphic overhaul, need to be a fucking game for fuck's sakes? So let me ask you something. Why do I have to download a mod to make it the same whenever they were the ones that tried to make it different? You're getting mad about this. To be a fucking game. I don't understand why this is a problem. Can you not understand the problem that I have with this? So they actively change something and make it different than the way it was, and now I'm the problem for recognizing that and saying that I don't like the change. How is that? I understand a problem. Then why are you trying to invalidate it? I don't understand. So, like, if you understand the problem that I have with it, then why are you trying to say that I'm not allowed to have this problem? I don't understand this. Let me explain. Okay. It's not a one-to-one recreation, though. That should be expected. No, it shouldn't. Why should you expect that they universally censor things in one direction? I would be completely okay with it being like a remaster and certain things are changed. But don't you think it's odd that every single one of these changes, primarily, is all in one direction? Don't you think that's a little bit odd that that's happening? It's because they're doing it on purpose. It's intentional. You're completely wrong. How could I be wrong if I'm literally looking at it? The game is good. The remaster is immaculate. The overall quality of the game is amazing. Like, it doesn't have to be sexualized. So you're not... What? That's not even what's being discussed. Nobody's even taught... That's not a reason. That has nothing to do with it. Waste of time. Let's move on. Yeah, that's not even the point.
Sparring with an Argonian named Salith, in the hopes of making it in the arena. In the original, their outfits, or lack of clothes, perfectly fit their situation. This place is like a mini gym, and her attire is perfectly comfortable for what she's doing. It's sort of like a sports bra vibe. In the remaster, without any context, you go up to this and it just looks like two homeless people fighting. You can see here that, first of all, this censorship doesn't extend to male characters, as they didn't decide to put a shirt on him.
See, this is, again, you can say like, oh, well, it's a remaster and things are different, but when things just keep being different in one direction over and over and over, a pattern begins to emerge.
Wearing this warm furry vest to work out.
Yeah, it's a
Before
pattern.
this, in
It's
the
obvious.
original, the shirtless Argonian was completely fine, and I don't think you ever needed to ask them what they were doing to get the picture. Now, her look has had a direct impact on his, and they just look like beggars from the waterfront district having a disagreement.
That's
it looks
true.
ridiculous, and it was something that did not need to be changed at all, and it's actually kind of ruined the particular scene here. No, it's not game-breaking, but it's the sort of jank that's like, not really charming.
Problem is that these kinds of things are like a cancer. And if you don't stop it early on, it becomes worse. Like, for example, whenever Blizzard took the calling Sylvanas a bitch out of WoW, we didn't realize that that would actually end up causing us to get an expansion that was so soy it was Dragonflight. We didn't know that at the time, but if you give these people an inch, they take a mile.
Armor is also a bit of a hot topic right now, kind of for the same reasons.
Yeah.
So, in the original Oblivion, some of the armor looked quite different depending on whether you played a male or female character. Granted, not all of the armor had these differences. For example, the steel armor kind of looked the same on both men and women, so it's important to have this context and those facts before we go and get our pitchforks. Don't worry, there will be time for pitchforks later. Some really notable differences can be seen in things like the iron armor, the amber armor set, the chainmail armor, and stuff worn in the arena,
not that much different,
several others that you'll notice too. What they appear to have done is taken away the elements that incorporated the female form and made all armor look more bulky and pretty much like it does on male characters. So
yeah, this is a really common trait and a common trend with like video games now, is that they try to create the way that like men and women look, and they use basically the exact same stuff. And they create these like really androgynous, totally unappealing, weird looking characters that I don't think anybody actually wants to look at or have anything to do with. Yeah, nobody wants this. I don't think anybody's asking for this at all.
The major argument for doing this, and I can sort of see where they're coming from, is again going for realism. So it is true that armor for the most part was never really made for women.
Okay, I agree. Let's go for realism. You can't play as a girl. No girls. Thank God.
That is because in many places in the world and many societies, it was widely accepted that war is for men, and only men go to war and need to wear armor. There were a few exceptions, of course, instances where armor may have been made to fit a particular person. Like, it's believed that Joan of Arc had her armor made specifically for her, courtesy of King Charles VII of France. But for the most part, if a woman did wear armor, it was just armor that was standard and made for men to begin with. You guys will know that I am somebody that advocates for realism in fantasy worlds, but what I mean by this is that I want to see it grounded within the predefined parameters of any given fantasy world. So my counter argument here is this. Unlike the real world, in Oblivion, women do go to war. In Elder Scrolls in general, women go to war. You see this in your first 2 minutes of playing Oblivion, where you meet Captain Renault wearing a full set of Blade's armor and escorting the Emperor to safety. That's kind of a big deal. I sort of touched on this in a video before where I spoke about how there don't appear to be the same predefined gender roles in Tamriel as there are in our real world. Therefore, realism in this case would mean that the female form is also taken into account when making armor, as women are out there just as much as men. And again, this was a thing in the original. It was already decided that this is a thing.
Well, I think that the reason why they don't do it is because they don't want to make armor that sexualizes women. And they view a acknowledgement of the female form in any way as sexualizing women. And that's why you see a lot of these like Western games that are made that are just totally fucking, again, it has these ugly androgynous characters. Like look at Marathon, look at Concord. It's the exact same mindset.
I don't see why they couldn't continue with it. I find it a particularly silly change for things like the amber armor. Like, the concept of amber armor is very fantastical, surreal. Surely with how magical and out of this world this looks, we can allow for it to fit nicely on a female character. So realism is great and all, but it shouldn't get to the point where you're taken out of the fantasy world, especially not in a remaster or remake scenario where you already have a point of reference. Upon further inspection, they did this with statues as well. So if the statue had some curves or a more risque appearance, this would be toned down. For example,
I don't know, guys. It's a huge nerf. That's a massive nerf. It's a gigantic nerf. Baldur's Gate 3 is considered woke, even if they didn't take away the boobs from the armor. Baldur's Gate 3 is not considered woke by anybody. Nobody except for the biggest retards on the internet think Baldur's Gate 3 is woke. The problem that people have is that this is one-dimensional desexualization that doesn't happen to male characters. It doesn't happen to men. It's only with women, and it's only in one way. That's the problem that people have. The 1 and 2 thing? Yeah, sure, and that's silly, but that's like 1 point.
Well, the Meridia statue in Oblivion looked like this, and in the remaster, they made it look kind of like it does in Skyrim, but it's definitely safer for work overall. After seeing this, it kind of occurred to me that perhaps they decided to make all of the Daedric shrines look more Skyrim-like. But then I visited Azura, and she was way more toned down and covered up than even the Skyrim version. Whereas in the original Oblivion, she looked like this. And if more Skyrim-like was the goal here, why didn't they change the Molag Bal statue to look like it does in ESO?
Well, it's obvious the reason why. I mean, they're censoring and changing the game in order to make it more in line with their worldviews in real life. That's the reason why. It's obvious. I mean, if you look at this kind of stuff and you don't come to that conclusion, you're being dishonest. Yeah, it's very weird.
I mean, this depiction of him is arguably better known even, but they decided to stick to the original. Now here's where the consistency falls through, and this is what kind of makes me question the purpose of changing these things at all. Now maybe they missed this, but interestingly, they also didn't change the mermaid statue in Anvil. In fact, I think they maybe even improved her a little bit with the pose, but yeah, they did. That's just my opinion.
And this is another element of like the weirdness of like this like weird sexual censorship. They have no problem. I don't know if you guys have noticed this with a lot of games, is that a lot of these video games have no problem making very sexualized characters that don't have humanoid traits. Like, for example, they have like that flame Atronach who like still has a big ass, or they have like this mermaid, or they have things like this. But there's always some form of thing that makes them inhuman to make it some form of like safe horny. Have you guys noticed this before? Like I've seen this like probably 10 or 15 times now. Yeah, okay. Very weird. Very, very weird.
Now at this point in the video, I know somebody has probably thought of the spider Daedra. So yes, I did decide to take a closer look at that as well. So my take on this is, they don't look bad. They retain pretty much the same essence, although I would have liked to see—
Again, you're right, I am. Look at it through that lens from now on.
That bright red incorporated into their outfits, but it's fine. However, if we address the elephant in the room, their chest is visibly smaller. Let's stop for a second and think who the spider Daedra are. They are closely associated with the Daedric prince Mephala. Mephala, who is the prince of lies, sex, murder, and secrets. A prince that uses seduction to get closer to mortals and trick them, get them entangled in her cunning web. Daedra are the perfect ambassadors for such a prince.
Yep.
And so having a more exaggerated chest, like they did in the original, would have been arguably more lore accurate and in character.
Of course.
No, this is by no means a horrible change that completely ruins the game. But I wonder about the message that it sends when, even in a scenario where the female body tells a part of the story and lore, they choose to tone it down like it's a bad thing. And it's not like Oblivion is a game where historically all women had super exaggerated bodies and jiggle physics and lots of focus on that sort of thing. So this also meant that having something more open and out there, or откровенное, like we say in Russian, made it that much more effective. Yeah. If people are worried about over-sexualization, let's be real, those who really want to make things more exaggerated and blown out of proportion will mod that right into the game. But that does not mean that we can't have tasteful depictions of the female form in the game by default.
Well, this is the thing, is that there's no one who hates attractive women more than unattractive women. And I think this is what's happened a lot, is that, and you see this, I think the best example of it is the amount of animosity and hostility that, for example, like fat women have towards women who are not fat. They will constantly body shame women who aren't fat. They'll, you know, like try to like say, oh, you're not skinny enough. There's something wrong with you. Where's your tits? Like, oh, you don't have any curves, etc. You've seen this many, many times, right? And so, and it's also like, obviously, like being overweight is only one aspect of it. I think that there are a lot of other aspects as well. If you think that like I am mean about this kind of stuff, or like any guy is mean, you should see some of these girls' group chats that get leaked. Like I look like a fucking saint. I look like I'm a nice guy compared to them. They are fucking savage. They recognize shit I didn't even know existed. Yeah, so basically we're facing the ire of women working on these games. I don't know if it's like necessarily women working on the games, because I don't think all the women are like that. What are your thoughts on a sexualization setting that allows you to dynamically turn it on based on gamers' preference? That way there's nothing to argue about. I don't know about that. I mean, I feel like that's just more work, right? I mean, I think you should do the thing that 90% of people want. Like that's generally what I think you should do. You should do, like, if there's 90% of people on one side of an issue, you just do that thing. It's pretty simple. Probably more like 95 or 99.
I mean, they fit perfectly into their world and story. All of this censorship and hiding of the female figure is a really weird way to remaster something.
It's women that don't like women that are attractive. And it's men that think that they can... This is another thing, too, is that these women exist in an ecosystem of simp men that will be obedient to them and agree with them about everything because these men want to fuck them. That's the reason why. And it's a form of them signaling that, oh, I'm one of the good ones. That's the reason why.
Sending the message that women should be more covered up and toned down in general. It's especially difficult to understand when you see that again, for the male characters, this was not at all changed. Speaking of Daedra, look at this evil eye.
Yeah, of course. Of course, and this is what I was saying, right? It's completely one-dimensional, or one direction.
As buff, as detailed, and as shirtless as ever. Why is this okay, but this is not? I will say, they did put shorts on the zombies, which again, consistency, I don't know, it's really weird. Let's look at the Shivering Isles, the famous saints and seducers. The interesting thing about their societies is that they are matriarchies, and this is so deeply ingrained in their being that we even see it in how armor is modeled after females and not males. So the male variant of the seducer armor and the saints armor is actually much more revealing and feminine on the men. One weird thing that I noticed, again related to the chest area, is that it almost seemed more detailed and more modern in the OG version of Oblivion than it does in the remaster.
Yeah, that's probably because the guys that made the original game spent a lot more time on this. I believe
whatever
that.
way it's done here is clearly to draw less attention to it, but it's just a bit strange when put side by side with the original. Like on the original, look at the contour and the definition on the skin, and here, there's just nothing. These are all small examples on their own, I know, but when put together, it does make me think about what the future holds in terms of depictions of female characters. I think that the Elder Scrolls always did a great job of depicting women in a way that was tasteful, even if there was an accent on sensuality and their bodies. It always felt right to the world and to women that played the games also, which is backed up by the fact that Elder Scrolls has a huge female fan base.
Do you actually think this kind of censorship is done because of more people from non-Western countries playing the games? No. It's the opposite. I think it's Western countries that are enforcing this on other countries. The reality is that with a lot of these games, there are, or not games, but like a lot of these like different, games, in like Asian audiences, they like it one other way, right? Look at, a lot of these games made in China or like Japan or especially in Korea, right? No, this is a Western, primarily American problem that we have exported to the rest of the world. This is a Western American problem that we have created.
That this kind of reminds me of. So one, have you ever seen those CD or album covers in the Middle East? So you have the version that was made in the West and then what was actually sold in the Middle East. Yeah. How the female artists are much more covered up because that's in their culture and that's just how it has to be. But the other example is when World of Warcraft changed the paintings of women to bowls of fruit.
Keep in mind, I have never seen a single instance of a game that goes from this to this that gets better. Every game that starts falling into this trap gets worse. Now, Oblivion is going to get carried by the fact that it had great content. But it does make me worried for Elder Scrolls 6 or 5 or whatever the hell it is.
This doesn't help the situation at all.
6?
This isn't accountability. It's just the erasure of something beautiful that can absolutely be appreciated in a respectful way. But when you take it out, I guess you're just sending a message that maybe women are too much. Can't respect them if they look like this, or what exactly are they trying to say? All in all, I do want to state that I think that the remaster is fantastic.
I do too.
There are so many elements to it that are super beautiful, and I've been admiring the world, admittedly even off stream. I just wish that small and unnecessary changes like this weren't made.
Well, here's what you have to keep in mind, is that the game was obviously approved by people that work at the company. And I think that because this was done under the direction of Bethesda, and this type of thing is also in Starfield as well, I would be very concerned about the new games that they make in the future, because it's likely that they will be infected with this same type of mental rot as well. That's just the way it is. And so, yeah, Todd has the final say. Yeah, they have it. And I don't want to have video games that are designed by HR. I don't think anybody wants that. And I feel like it's important to be able to draw the distinction between, like, I played the Oblivion remaster, you guys know, a lot, right? I put a lot of time into it. I think it's a great game, but I do think that these things are actively immersion breaking for the people that recognize them and identify them, because they realize that now you're in a world that's being created and curated and censored in order to, like, protect a certain type of viewpoint that most people simply don't have. And I think that that's really what the problem is with this the most, is that these are decisions that are being made and put into video games that are not decisions that are respected or held by any of the player base. They're created, yeah, for and by Karens. Exactly, yeah. Like, so players don't want this, so why is it happening? And I think at the fundamental level, if you are making design decisions that the players don't want, then you are on a course for destruction. You are going to fuck yourself. They're targeting a younger audience. They don't care about your generation anyway. They're targeting a younger audience that's already been fed this crap. You mean the younger audience that's, like, addicted to gacha games and playing them with all of these booba characters and everything? Do you think young 14-year-old guys don't want to look at this? Like, I mean, what are you thinking about? Like, some, like, 20-year-old guy doesn't want to see a hot girl in a bikini fighting with a sword? Like, really? Like, you remember whenever you were 14? Do you really think that 14-year-olds now are that much different? 17-year-olds are that much different? No, they're the exact same. There's no difference at all.
But also to not send the wrong message about women and women's bodies. And that is my take on this whole situation. I do hope that I was able to articulate myself as well as I put those thoughts together in my head. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. As always, big thanks to my channel members for all of your continued support, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Be seeing you. Bye.
Yep. I think that this is a, again, like, I really, really like the remaster of the game. I think the remaster is great, but I do think that people should be aware of this and people should call it out. And I think also, again, but it's important to be able to distinguish between thinking that a game is good, but acknowledging that it has things that are problematic. And I think that's okay to do. And the game is successful. I don't give a crap about these derivative issues. Well, I mean, I think that so you shouldn't think about it in that context. The way that I think that you should think about it, at least. I mean, like, you should think about it however you want, right? But this is how I think about it. This is, I think, the best way to think about it. Do these changes make you enjoy the game more? And I think the answer is probably no. They probably don't. And so, are there people out there that these changes make them enjoy the game less? Yes, probably, for sure. Because things have been changed and they feel like it's weird, or it's like HR design or whatever. So if these changes are not improving the experience for anyone, but they are making the experience worse for some people, why do they exist? And that's the big question that I think a lot of people should ask. And whenever you think about it from that context, it doesn't matter whether you care or not, because the mentality of let's change something even though players don't want it will bleed over into aspects that you will care about. And when that happens, your experience will be worse. And so I think that advocating for a more player-focused, player-centric design goal is something that matters. Slippery slope? Yeah, and we've seen this slope play out with World of Warcraft. Like, World of Warcraft is like, by the time, I remember they added a rainbow chair into the game for, like, June because it was Pride Month. And somebody is like, why are people complaining about this? This chair is the least gay thing in the game now. The entire game had been totally turned, any degree of, like, masculinity or, like, of, like, aggression or anything like that of, like, World of Warcraft that it used to have has been totally taken out of the game. They've been totally removed. And in the process, yeah, it's the Karens. I mean, like, you could say that, right? But, like, I think it's a bigger issue. As one of the people that was that Solid Removing Bitch was heading to, it always happens when these changes are made. It means it's worse and larger changes are happening. Yes, and these changes will not stop at any one place because these people never want to. They'll never be happy because being happy means they lose power. And they wield power by complaining about things. So what they do is they continue having problems with things so that people continue paying attention to them. And yeah, they gave the remastered Flame Atronach detailed feet. This is Todd's vision. Well, it's also because that's safe horny. And you can see that happen a lot with a lot of video games. And so, and this is one of the things that I've noticed a lot, is that you have weird fetishes that are allowed in video games and the sexualization of non-humanoid characters. But whenever it comes to a sexualization of a humanoid character or a person that is a human being, now it's different. So it's no problem sexualizing someone who is half a spider or whatever, and it's no problem sexualizing a woman's feet now, but you can't sexualize their boobs. And I think the reason why is, and again, it is an inversion of what is normal. It is a total inversion of what's normal. Remember WoW feet? Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's done in a way because people do want to be sexualized in a way, right? Or they do want to be able to sexualize someone in a way, but they do it in a way that's safe and it's socially acceptable. Do you see kind of like safe horny? No, I'm serious. I know it sounds insane. And the thing is, like, I am insane. Well, I'm not. I'm the only person who's not. But how many instances have you guys noticed where there are characters that are non-human that are sexualized and the humanoid characters are not sexualized? Am I the only one who's noticed this paradigm happening? So many. Yes. Very, very weird. Very weird. It's a transition from, instead of sexualizing, like women for like things that they are traditionally sexualized for, now they're being sexualized for new things because somehow that's okay. If I see a fucking Minotaur sexualized again, bro, I'm fine with them sexualizing any of this stuff. It's totally okay with me, but just make sure that you do it to all of it or none of it. That's my mindset, right? It's not that it's good or bad, it's that it's happening in a one-dimensional way. But yeah, I do totally support this video, and I think, again, this kind of stuff is pushed, I think, primarily by women who feel insecure, and so they want to censor and repress the female form being represented in ways that men like, because they have some sort of, I don't know, they probably don't like their dad, right? Let's just be honest. Like, they have some sort of issue with, like, a male in their family, and so, or their life, and so this is something that's been extrapolated to the now it's the world's problem. They're pro-sex work, but they hate sexualizing characters. Make it make sense? Well, I mean, I think that makes sense. So basically, and this is the way that it exists, right? Is that sexualizing a character, and no, you might think that it's stupid, but it's not. So sexualizing another person and a person sexualizing themselves are two very different things. So, for example, a girl that is, I don't know, like, a girl that is trying to sexualize herself is very different than a guy who's trying to take an upskirt photo of a girl. And the difference is consent and intent. And I think the idea of it is that women should be the ones who are the deciders of whether they're being sexualized or not. But the problem that I have with this in video games is that these women aren't real. I think that in the cases of like real life, it makes a lot of sense, and I agree with it in almost all cases. But whenever you're talking about video game characters that aren't real, then I feel like all of this goes out the window. And Japanese female developers make hot game characters, though? Yeah, no, I know that. But what I'm saying is that, so do you guys understand where I think this is coming from? Where I think it's coming from the idea that women should be the ones who choose whether they sexualize themselves, and then it's been extrapolated into video games as well? Because it's a well-meaning idea, and I agree with the idea that sexualizing women and like taking like creep shots of women and like, staring at them in public and this kind of stuff, this is not gentlemanly behavior, okay? It's not. And I don't think that any man with any degree of self-respect should behave this way. I don't do it. I don't think other people should do it either. But at the same time, whenever you're talking about video games, this is a totally different topic. I think that everybody can understand the difference between somebody taking a glance at a person and appreciating that they're attractive and somebody staring and trying to take photos of them without their consent. I don't think that we need to have this like weird, intellectually dishonest conversation. We clearly understand that there's a very big difference, and anybody who doesn't probably needs to go back to school. Yeah, admiring is not staring like a creep. Why is Chad always arguing? I think that I'm going to tell you the real reason why I think guys and people like that argue. The real reason why is because a lot of people don't understand what the difference is. Straight up. They actually do not understand what the difference is. And because of that, and like they're never taught that difference, right? Like maybe they don't grow up with a, you know, a dad that teaches them that in the right way, or for whatever reason, they're immature. They're unable to comprehend the nuance to it. Yeah, they're socially retarded. Like, I mean, there's a lot of reasons, straight up. And I think that's actually why. The difference between being a gentleman and a creep. You want to know what the difference is? Consent. That's it. Consent and respect. It's actually that simple. Now, obviously, there's a degree, like, I agree with you that there's, like, a certain degree of, oh, well, if you're an attractive guy, you get more, like, people are more forgiving of you being a little bit creepier, let's say, than if you were an unattractive guy, right? I think that there is a degree of that that's true, but it's a lot smaller than you might imagine. I do. I think it's a lot smaller than people would imagine. Pretty privilege is real? It is. And so, like, it definitely is. But even attractive guys can be creepy, and there's tons of women that are totally turned off by it and don't like it at all. And so that's really what I think.